my son and my daughter. I read, and I know you know that. And that's why you guys read so much. There's an author, her name is Caitlin Johnstone, and I've been reading her work for years now. And she writes almost every day, pretty much every day. And this article is one that resonated deeply with me. And I want you guys to listen. The title of Caitlin Johnstone's article on this July 25, 2022 is titled, "We've Been Lied to Our Whole Lives About Everything That Matters." It sounds terse. It sounds pretty rough. But I'll tell you, it's absolutely true. So listen close, little ones. Stories about protagonists who've been misguided their whole lives about something very important have been emerging in our culture for generations. And they continue to delight audiences in the box office to this day. The pauper was really a prince. Luke was Darth Vader's son. Keanu Reeves has been living in a computer simulation, and Bruce Willis was really a ghost. Jim Carrey's whole world was a set of a TV show, and everyone in his life had been lying to him since his infancy. And you guys might never watch these movies, but the point is all of these protagonists, all the main characters in these movies, have been lied to their entire lives. This theme repeats so often because it strongly resonates with people, and it strongly resonates with people because it's exactly what is happening. From our earliest moments, we are trained to fit in with a society that was designed from the ground up by powerful in the service of the powerful. As soon as we are old enough to get curious about the world and how it works, our heads are filled with lies about such matters by our educational systems, by the media we consume, by our parents, who were indoctrinated in the same way, and by the very culture we find ourselves immersed in from day one. And this, my son, my daughter, is why we have given you a childhood. You will someday be wholly immersed in the world. And when those days come, you will have the strength, the wisdom, and the discernment to know what to care about and what not to. And if you live by a similar model that you see in me, you'll see that I don't care about any of it. These stories about character who have been deceived about life resonate so strongly with us because at some level we suspect it might be true of our own lives as well. They whisper to something hidden and sacred within us and has always sensed that there's something not quite right with the way we perceive things. We've spent our whole lives marinating in lies that serve the powerful. We've deceived into believing that we live in a democracy whose government acts in accordance with the will of the voting public. We're deceived into believing our political systems were driven by two warring ideological factions whose divisions are naturally occurring phenomena in our society instead of the product of deliberate social engineering. We're deceived into believing our government is basically good, and it stands in opposition to foreign governments who are pure evil. We're deceived into believing the way things are is the only way they could possibly be. I remind you, children, often, when you look outside and you play outside, that nothing is happening. And that is the way it is with 99.99999% of the world. They just want to live. They just want to be. Nothing's happening. We're deceived into believing false things about the ways we gather information and form our understanding of the world. We're deceived into believing the news media and that they tell us the truth about what's going on. We're deceived into believing that everything we hear from our side of the political partisan divide is true and trustworthy. We're deceived into believing the partisan filters, which have been placed over our perception of national and world events by indoctrination, are entirely reliable instruments for interpreting information and drawing conclusions. We're deceived into believing false things about ourselves. We're deceived into believing that we are successful if we can become dominant capitalists and wealthy ladder climbers, and that we are failures if we don't turn the gears of industry and climb over others to get ahead. We're deceived into believing that we're good if we uphold the made-up, power-serving rules of law and culture of religion, and we are bad if we transgress them. We're deceived into believing that we need to keep accomplishing, achieving, and obtaining, and we need to keep earning money and approval so that one day we might feel adequate at some imaginary point in the future, which never arises. This is why we don't care about outward appearance. This is why we don't care about any groups. None of that matters. Only individual heart. We've talked about this. If we really commit to uprooting the untruth that's been planted in us, we can even discover that we've been deceiving ourselves about the way we experience reality, that the perception of oneself as a finite character who is separate from the world is based on false assumptions about the way experience is happening, unhelpful mental habits born of incorrect premises, and overlooked aspects of our own consciousness. We've been making ourselves miserable with false beliefs about who and what we are. This is why I remind you, my beloved, of who you are. You are God's. You are mine. You are Amma's. That's it. Nobody else can lay claim on you, ever. This civilization is the set of the Truman Show, and we are all Truman. But because we are all Truman, we can only walk off the set if we walk off together. There is no option to leave as an individual, because even if you know it's all lies, you're still stuck in a world of humans whose behavior is driven by lies. Awakening to reality as an individual can, for this reason, sometimes be more uncomfortable than remaining asleep in a dream, because you're like Truman after he realizes it's all a sham, but before he escapes. At times, you're just stuck there, freaking out about the actor who's playing your mother while she tries in vain to cut the commercial break. It can be distressing for you, and it can be distressing for people around you who aren't yet on the same page. The only way we're going to get off the set of The Truman Show is if we all can succeed in waking each other up from the lies in which we built it. Until then, we'll be stuck in a world of poverty, war, exploitation, degradation, ecocide, and suffering. It's not until enough of us have unplugged our minds from the matrix of lies that we'll be able to use our strength of numbers to force real change. Only then will we be able to escape. Only then will we be able to walk off the set. Only then we will be able to turn to the audience and say, in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, and then turn around and walk out the door and begin our adventure into reality. Now, this author, Caitlin Johnstone, is advocating, obviously, for change, political change. I don't care about that. That doesn't bother me. None of that is instrumental in my decision-making. I deal with what comes and ignore everything else. And so this last part is a little aggressive towards the whole, let's force real change. Yeah. I don't like to force anything. But understand, my loves, understand, the world out there, the mainstream media, the news, Wikipedia, history is being changed all the time. How do I know this? Because the history about me in mainstream media changes all the time. I get Google alerts when any time anyone uses my name in any article. And it is intriguing to see my name being changed and moved around in articles that are years, sometimes 7. I think the last ping I got was like maybe a 2017 article. So 7 years ago. 5 years ago. 5 years ago. So they're changing history all the time. The history that you guys will know will not be the history that I lived through. And so understand. Do you. Do you. Focus on your goals, your passions, and work with all your heart and all your soul. Never mind the rest of the world. I love you.